Hey, Falcons and NFL fans, welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins on Atlanta Sports Unlimited with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman behind the scenes. I'm Dave Holcomb. We have another exciting show for you today. The biggest news in the NFL this week, again, was in the NFC South, but with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians shockingly announced his retirement. I think that was Wednesday night. Everybody was discussing it Thursday morning. I think we're going to spend a big bulk of our show on that today and how Bruce Arians' retirement will impact the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, that just completely came out of left field for me. I always monitor my Twitter feed and started seeing talk about Bowles as the head coach. I'm like, was he promoted to assistant coach or was he promoted, about Bowles being promoted, but I didn't dream that Arians was the one who stepped down.
Yeah. I think he was promoted to assistant coach before this happened, right?
Okay.
I think he was. And I think he was viewed as a coach in waiting kind of thing. And the waiting stopped much earlier.
Yeah, a lot earlier than he expected.
Yeah, right. So we'll dive all into that really to begin our show. We're also going to hit on some Atlanta-centric topics. They signed a wide receiver this week. We'll dive into whether or not that moves the needle at all. Former Chicago Bear. So we're hoping for an inside scoop from our Chicago Bear fan from the channel, Tom.
Sure.
And I thought there were some interesting comments on Grady Jarrett this week. You had the NFL annual owners meeting or whatever that's called, where the owners and coaches meet down in Florida at this time of year in the offseason before the draft, after free agency started. So it's a good opportunity for the media to ask a bunch of questions, and it's really just media fodder. We get topics from it for talk shows like this. Other than that, it doesn't have much substance, but it helps guys like us. And I think the biggest topic from the Falcons was on Grady Jarrett, and specifically Arthur Smith, what he had to say about Jarrett and possibly signing the big defensive tackle to an extension.
Well, I don't see why you wouldn't right now. You gotta keep somebody around. Somebody has to be here.
Well, that's kind of going to be my question, though, when we get to this topic. Like, do you have to keep anybody around? I mean, if you're going to go rebuild, you just go all in and trade everybody that you got to try and get assets for the future.
I think you can build around Grady Jarrett. So,
okay.
I'm more of a guy who would say keep him, but we can go into it. It'll be interesting.
And we want to hear from you listeners out there watching the show live. You can comment. We'll read your comment live on air. We've gotten a lot of comments the last couple of weeks on Matt Ryan. We know that was obviously a big topic for fans, but we want to hear from you guys on these other topics as well. Bruce Arians' retirement, Grady Jarrett extension. Where do you think the team should go with that? We'll read your comment on air live again. And if you're watching on replay, tweet at us at TJ Pollen at DM Holcomb.
Yeah, would love to hear from you. Also got Arthur Blank made a couple of statements about the quarterback situation in Atlanta too. So that I found interesting. But, we'll see how that goes about, needing a long-term plan at quarterback. Well, but I want to hear what you have to say about that, Dave.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that probably in the second half hour. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, a growing fantasy sports app in the fantasy sports world. When you sign up, use the promo code ASU. It's real easy to get started. Download that app in your Apple Store, Google Play Store, whatever you use on your device. And when you download it, sign up with that promo code ASU. That supports us, the show. So if you want to do some fantasy games and support us, this is a great way to do it. Use that promo code ASU for Atlanta Sports Unlimited, and you get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So get started today.
Yeah, we got some big games going on tonight as far as the NCAA tournament. So it should be interesting to sign up and take a few, take a few chances. There's going to be a lot of interesting props that you can, make your choice with and see how well you do. But North Carolina against Duke, this is going to be massive. That's going to shake the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be Coach K's last game. It's last run in the tournament, trying to win one more championship. And it's just blue bloods galore in the Final Four.
Yeah.
And I guess that might lead us into a conversation I don't want to spend too much time on, but I know my friends at Cox Media I worked with a few years ago, we'd have this discussion all the time. Who are the blue blood college basketball programs? And is Villanova in that discussion? And I would say absolutely. So yeah, it's a blue blood galore in this Final Four.
I mean, they have a championship in their background, so why wouldn't it? That's the thing.
Well, I guess it all depends how you define blue blood. And,
I don't know if they have the deep tradition that a Kansas or a Duke or North Carolina does. But, and that's kind of where I would draw the line of blue blood. How long has that tradition been going on? I mean,
okay, so
and how long and how successful have you been over that time?
Now but Villanova also has a championship from 1985, right?
I don't remember. I don't remember when they last.
I believe they did. So they have two championships in the last 5-6 years, whatever it is. And then they have the 85 championship, I believe. They beat Georgetown. That was the all Big East. So this is what I would say about blue bloods and really just college sports in general, but maybe definitely college basketball. It's a regional, it's traditionally it's been a regional sport. And me being from the Northeast, Villanova, Georgetown, Syracuse, even UConn, those are blue bloods to me. But I understand the definition. Blue bloods is supposed to be a national brand, and how successful is Villanova at recruiting California kids? I don't know. I'm not into college basketball enough. How successful is Jim Boeheim been at recruiting Texas kids? I don't know. That is how kind of how my colleagues have defined blue bloods, and it leads to an interesting discussion because I've always viewed those schools I mentioned in the Northeast as premier college basketball programs.
I would say a good definition of blue bloods might be, is it a school that college coaches will leave their current situation to go coach, to go be at? Kind of one of those, this is my last job as a college basketball coach. I'm not going anywhere else now that I'm here. So I would use that as a part of my definition.
Well, I would think that opens it up to more schools then, because there's probably more schools that a coach would say, this is my last stop at.
Yeah. Are you a destination school?
Yeah.
So, but Villanova, Kansas has had, been at the top of the heap, hell, since Wilt Chamberlain went to Kansas. So, I mean, they've been a top 10 school, top 10 destination. And again, a team that coaches will leave their current situation to go to coach there. Sure. And so, considering that we had so many kind of Cinderellas going through the NCAA tournament, we ended up with 4 powerhouses in the Final Four.
Right. And I guess depending on how you define Gonzaga the last few years, if you still consider them a Cinderella or not, I guess they're definitely not a blue blood at this, not yet anyway. And so they've been in the Final Four a couple of times. Baylor was in it last year, not a traditional power. So this is kind of not a new thing, but it's the first time in a while, I would say, that we've had 4 powerhouse programs, 4 championship tradition college basketball programs vying for another title.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So that's your college basketball fill from us for the day. We're going to transition to our leading story on today's show with Bruce Arians retiring from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there's a lot of different angles and, conspiracy theories that people have on, why the retirement happened now. And, it is a kind of an odd timing that, after free agency started, it's been a wild offseason for Tampa Bay already because you thought they were going to be kind of a team in rebuild mode without Tom Brady. But Tom Brady decides to come back after 3 weeks in retirement and
3 or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, he's recruiting all these guys to come down to Tampa, Russell Gage being one of them from Atlanta. And now they look ready to, run the run for the ship again in 2022. But yet their coach steps down, about a month shy of the NFL draft. So it really, I don't know if turbulent is the right word, but unusual offseason for sure for the Buccaneers so far.
Yeah. And I guess, everybody kept saying that there was kind of like a disconnect between Arians and Tom Brady, that there was some tension there. Maybe there was. I don't know. Because after they lost their playoff game to the Rams, Arians sounded like he was ready to come back. There was nothing, going to stop him from coming back to the team. He was ready to coach, and they were ready to build this thing. He was like, well, yeah, we'll wait for Brady to make his decision. Then he made a weird comment talking about, but we have Blaine Gabbert, and he's never played for such a good team before. And that that really threw me, because Blaine Gabbert is my definition of being a bad quarterback.
Right?
Yeah. He played like Gabbert. He was Gabbertian. And that's, and you got Bruce Arians saying, well, Blaine Gabbert's never played for a good team before. Well, like he's trying to talk him up as a possible starter.
Right. Yeah.
I don't. So that was a little weird. And then, Brady comes back. Arians seems to be welcoming. And just out of the blue, I was shocked. I didn't see this coming at all. Maybe I just had my eyes closed. I don't know. I had a busy week at work this week. I mean, so, it might be, but it shocked the heck out of me that he decided to retire. And it seemed like he was talking about problems with Brady while not trying to feed the rumors that there were problems with Brady. So I don't know. How do you look at it, Dave? Because
I guess I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, so I just want to believe what Arians just flat out said in his statement, that he wanted to leave the team when they were in a good situation to have success with Todd Bowles as their next head coach. We mentioned at the top of the show that Bowles was kind of made the coach in waiting there. Maybe that's why he decided not to leave. I'm not really sure if he got any definitive offers or not from any of the interviews he had, but maybe that was part of why he stayed. And then, Arians just simply said, well, now that Brady's back, it actually is a situation where Bowles can have some initial success and the team is in a good situation. Is Arians just flat out lying there in that statement? I mean, I want to believe him. So I've always liked Bruce Arians. I'm not going to say that he's misleading us, misleading the public. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess, and say that, that I think that's true. And if you want to believe that Arians and Brady have had issues, I mean, they probably have had some. I'm not denying that. But I mean, Brady had reportedly issues with Bill Belichick too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And he was there for a long time, and it was a successful marriage there until they decided to part ways. Brady decided to go somewhere else. And Belichick still speaks glowingly of Brady, and Brady does of Belichick. So, I mean, are they lying as well? Or do they also have a beef that, that we should be digging into more, just like Arians and Brady? I don't think there's as much here as people are making it out to be. this is the time of year we tend to make, a mountain out of a molehill. And I think this is kind of an example of that. Is there something there? Yeah, perhaps. But I don't think that was the leading reason why, Arians retired. I believe his statement that he wanted to give Bowles a chance to win.
Okay. Yeah. You can believe a statement if you want. I think there was more. I want the conspiracy. I want it all. I want the, normally I'm not a conspiracy nut, but I want it. I want the conspiracy. I want the smoking gun here. But it's just the timing of it and the fact that Arians, as I said, seemed to be going forward with the team for the last couple of months, and then all of a sudden he decides he's going to, hand it over to Todd Bowles.
Well, I think that's why his statement gels. It makes sense because if Brady hadn't come back, Arians wanted to help rebuild the team to a situation where they were a contender again. They weren't expecting to be a contender when Brady retired. And then Brady retires, Brady comes back, and then they're a contender again. They're landing all these free agents. And I think Arians stepped back and said, this is the time. This is the time to leave it in a good situation with my good friend. I mean, him and Bowles are pals. I think that is safe to say. They're definitely good buddies, and Arians wanted to do something for his buddy. And he's staying with the organization. It's not like they just shipping him off and okay, we're picking Brady over you. That's not really the situation, even if there's a beef there. I mean, he's staying in the front office.
Yes, he is. But he doesn't have to deal with Brady every day.
That's true.
Doesn't have to step into the quarterback room. It seems like there is a correlation between Brady coming back and Arians leaving to me. I don't know how much turmoil there was and how bad the divide was between the two. And fans, what do you think? Everybody is watching. Let's see some comments. What do you think?
So you think, let me ask you this question. So do you think it's possible Brady retired because he didn't want to play for Bruce Arians anymore? And then he realized he wanted to play, or maybe Tampa Bay realized that he wants to play and he was going to try and go play somewhere else later this summer. San Francisco has been floated out there as a destination for him. Miami has been floated out there as a destination for him the last month too.
Yeah, except Tampa Bay owns his rights. There's no way he can go anywhere.
That's true. I mean, we've seen that before, though. Players retire and then they come back and say, well, I don't want to play for you. I'm going to play for somebody else. Marshawn Lynch did that. The Seattle owned Marshawn Lynch and they traded him to Oakland at the time. So it's not unheard of for a player to try to do that. But my question, so do you think Brady retired and then Tampa Bay realized he wanted to play again, or Brady approached them and said, hey, I'll play in Tampa one more season, but not for Bruce Arians? And then Arians said, okay, I'll stay with the organization in this weird role and I'll retire a month after you come back. So it doesn't look like it's a cause and effect situation. Is that what you think happened?
Yes.
Okay.
There are a lot of rumblings, Dave, and there's a lot of coincidences, and I just don't like coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. All right. Things happen for a reason. And the fact that Arians waited until now, until the end of March, to walk away from this tells me that there's more to this than meets the eye. Now, we'll never know. I mean, it's all speculation. I understand that. But as I say, there's a lot of coincidences here that don't quite line up with the rosy picture that everybody is trying to paint about this situation.
All right. I think the answer, the question I laid out there and your answer makes sense, that, he would retire later to try and put down any of the rumors or truths that there was a beef between him and Brady. But I guess I just have a hard time believing that 70-year-old head coach, 69, however old Arians is, would essentially retire. I mean, he's not going to get another head coaching job at this point. That he would retire.
He wants a head coaching job. He's already dealing with a partial tear of his Achilles tendon. So, I mean, he's going through therapy for that. He kind of coached with it during the last part of last year. I don't, but he's a very competitive man. That's all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just have a hard time believing Bruce Arians would step aside even for somebody like Tom Brady. I think, you know, why wouldn't Arians say if Brady says, I want to come back, but you got to retire? I mean, Arians seems like the type of guy that would say, tough shit. I mean, I'm here. You retired. You want to come back. This is my team. I was here before you were here in 2019.
Right.
I just don't understand why Bruce Arians wouldn't say that. To save face with Tom Brady, to save face with the public. I don't believe that he would care to have good feelings around you know, Brady or care what the public says about him if it's a him versus Brady beef. He's always been somebody that's been his own person. So I have a hard time believing that he would agree to that, I guess.
What do you think, Zozo? You got something to say, Zo? Go ahead. Let it out. No. Zozo's not going to talk to us this morning. Yeah, but the thing is, the Buccaneers really didn't move forward as a Super Bowl contender until Brady got there.
Well, sure. Yeah, you need the quarterback, of course. Right. They had to use Winston. I mean, Winston, depending on how you look at it, had a good season under Bruce Arians, threw for 5,000 yards, threw 30 touchdowns, also threw 30 interceptions. So, I mean, he did some good things under Arians. I think they could have won a Super Bowl in 2020 with a quarterback other than Brady. I guess that's what I would say.
I would like to say that too, because I think in a way Brady gets built up. Brady's reputation might be bigger than where he is as a player right now.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Brady did a lot for that team. He came in, he gave them a championship pedigree. He was a great leader. And if you remember, that season didn't start great for them. I think they were 3-2. They finished.
No, but they didn't have a training camp either.
He didn't. What was that?
They didn't have a training camp either.
That's true. Yeah. Because of 2020, the COVID situation. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, so they were basically doing training camp as they went in September, and it was average, you know, very inconsistent from Brady and the whole team. And they came together and you know, played really well in the playoffs. And I credit Brady a lot for that, bringing them together and turning them into a championship team. Maybe that doesn't happen with I don't know, an Aaron Rodgers, because he doesn't have the same leadership capabilities or championship caliber. I know he has a Super Bowl title, but maybe that doesn't happen without Brady. But to say that the Buccaneers, well, they weren't Bruce Arians wasn't a championship coach until Brady, you can say that for any coach. And Arians has had a lot of success in this league with various quarterbacks as a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. I mean, Carson Palmer as a head coach in Arizona. I mean, he was interim coach with Indianapolis with Andrew Luck as a rookie. So, you know, to say it was all Tom Brady, I just don't think it was true. Would be true.
Oh, no, it's not all Tom Brady. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I know you're not saying that. Yeah.
So
I'm just saying it.
And I do have to say, I'm glad to see that Todd Bowles is getting another chance.
Yeah, me too.
At the head coach slot. I think he was in a bad situation with the Jets. The Jets are a bad situation for anybody right now.
And Bowles had some success there with them. I think he was 10-6 one season. So I know they didn't fire him after one bad year. I think he had 2 bad years after that 10-6 season. But you're right that the Jets didn't support him like they haven't been able to support a head coach in a long time.
Right. So it's nice to see that Bowles is getting another shot. Quality defensive coach. Now, the only thing that gets me is Bowles is going to call his own defenses, kind of like Lovie Smith in Houston. And to me, if you're a head coach, you got to give up those play calling duties and take an overall approach to the team. You have to be the coach of the entire team, not just the defense.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that Dan Quinn did that too in his final year, and that did not go well at all.
It never does. So I'm interested to see how Tampa plays now that, Bowles has come out and said that I'm going to call my own defenses. And Byron Leftwich is a very capable offensive coordinator. In fact, he's a head coach candidate in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got a quality guy running your offense, but again, you can't have two leaders on the same team. It doesn't quite work. Bowles has to kind of step back a little bit and be the coach and not be the defensive coordinator and try and coach at the same time.
Well, I have another question for you along those lines, but along the lines also of, Tom Brady and how much say does he have in this organization right now? I mean, lots of people are going to say on Twitter this fall that Tom Brady is the head coach, and maybe it was a good thing that Bruce Arians was there for the Buccaneers because he had a long pedigree of coaching for a long time in college and the pros, but he's been in the NFL since the late 80s. Coach all those different quarterbacks that I mentioned, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, Jameis Winston. So, he had enough, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl before Brady, I think he had enough experience that, he was able to push back on Brady's ideas and what Brady wanted to do. And not that he didn't want to do what Brady wanted to do, but it was a collaboration.
Right.
How is it going forward with Tom Brady when he is, what is he? He's the same age as Byron Leftwich. I mean, he's won 7 Super Bowls, and Leftwich, as great of a coach as he is still a young offensive coordinator that's never been a head coach and never won anything without Tom Brady. How does that relationship work if Brady has so much control? Or is that just the way it's going to be? It's going to be Brady's show in Tampa.
I think it's going to be Brady's show. I think Brady gets what he wants, and I mean, he might coordinate. And apparently they did coordinate as far as getting together with game plans and that kind of thing. But I think, you're right. Arians has that reputation, that long time reputation that he can lean back on and say, hey, I've accomplished a lot in this league myself too. Yeah. And, Leftwich nor Bowles has that kind of reputation that they could fall back on. I think this becomes more of a Brady show going into next season.
Yeah.
And I would think that's a good thing.
I don't think it is either. So let's talk about this from the Falcons' perspective now. I think it's a good thing that Arians isn't going to be the head coach for Tampa for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I'm not saying that this means the Falcons can win the NFC South. Of course, nobody thinks that. But, looking at this fall or 2023, 2024, by that time, Brady and Arians might have been retired anyway. But getting Arians out of there sooner is, I think, a good thing for the Falcons. And it could open things up a little bit more on the NFC South. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. Definitely not having Bruce Arians there is going to make a big difference on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They may not be seeing it. They might not be saying it right now, but I think it's going to be the case. I like Arians as a head coach. What always is dug at me is the Chicago Bears had Bruce Arians and Mark Trestman as finalists for their head coaching position and took Mark Trestman instead of Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
And Arians never let them forget it either.
How different history could have been for Chicago.
God. Oh, how different. You better believe it. So, that's what gets me. That, as I say, we're going to see but I don't think it's as good a Tampa team. Carolina still does not have a good quarterback situation. If Matt Rule thinks he's going forward with Sam Darnold and it's going to make and bring Newton back as the backup, and it's going to make a competitive team in Carolina, he's delirious. I mean, he's smoking something. That's not going to happen. I mean, we saw that last year.
There's reports that the players in Carolina don't even believe in Sam Darnold. I forget where I saw that this week. I think I saw it this morning. That that Darnold is just does not have any clout in that locker room at all. No belief that he can be the guy. And if pivoting to the NFL draft here for a second, I think Carolina is the team that could reach for one of those quarterbacks. I mean, these quarterbacks in this class are not highly regarded like last year, and really probably shouldn't. I don't think any of them should go in the top 10 from what I'm reading. But Carolina is that one team. I mean, maybe Atlanta, maybe Seattle too at 8 and 9. But Carolina is that team close to the top 5 at 6 that could reach on one of these guys because they're so desperate to get a different quarterback.
Yeah, I think so. I think Malik Willis could end up in Carolina.
Yeah.
Very easily. And it would not surprise me at all. So, because I wonder how many players still believe in Matt Rule there. They always get off to a great start, but man, they fall apart in the second half of the season. And
once October rolls around, they start.
Yeah, once October rolls around, that's it. They're done.
Yeah.
And they had one of the best defenses in the league last year for the first 6 weeks. And they were monstrous on defense.
Yeah. I did not like the Matt Rule hire when it happened, and I like it even less now somehow. So I
got Carolina that's going to be in a bad spot. It might be in a worse spot than the Falcons right now. As I say, they can play defense, but that offense, I don't know what they're going to do on offense.
Yeah, they have more pieces on defense. I mean, they went all defense in a draft 2 years ago, so you would think that would shore up a lot of areas on defense, and it has for them. But I don't think they have the right coach in place, and they don't have the quarterback. No. So Atlanta doesn't have a quarterback, but I think they have the right coach, and they have the GM too that I think is going to fix these things. So Atlanta is further along in their rebuild. Are we ready to say Atlanta's rebuilding yet?
I say Atlanta's rebuilding. I'm willing to say it. All right. The Falcons are rebuilding.
Yeah. So the Falcons are further along in their rebuild, which to them only started like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But they're still further along, starting 2 weeks ago, than the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. At least they have a quarterback who's played effectively at times in the NFL and was thought more highly of than Sam Darnold coming into the league. I'm going to be interested to see how Jameis Winston does in New Orleans without Sean Payton as his head coach.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, do we get the Wild Wild West Winston who's throwing, throwing deep, throwing, another 30 touchdown pass, 30 interception season? Is Winston going to stay within himself? The problem with Winston staying within himself, though, was the fact that the Saints offense was not as effective.
Right.
Trying to reel in Winston and reel in what he does, took a lot of the energy out of the Saints offense. So I don't see how that's. I'm going to be interested to see how that's going to play out this year. So, it's a division where a lot of things can happen. It's going to be interesting to see how the draft plays out now.
Right. Yeah.
As far as the Falcons' position and how well they look going into the season in the NFC South.
So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. You mentioned a lot of them with Carolina's quarterback situation. New Orleans has a new head coach. Atlanta, obviously, a new quarterback now. We still have the draft to go, but I think we're both in agreement that Arians impacts the Buccaneers for sure, but Tampa Bay is still the favorite in the NFC South.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. You still got some quality coaching there. You still got a lot of players there.
Sure,
right. You still have a heck of a team in place.
Right. And Tom Brady being there, as long as Tom Brady is there and is Tom Brady, if at some point he drops off, then that discussion could change. But until that happens, or until he actually retires and stays on the couch, Tampa Bay is going to be the team to beat in this division.
I think Giselle told him to get a hobby, get out of the house. She had him hanging around the house for 1 month. Said, Tom, get out of here, get a hobby, do something.
Well, I've seen a lot of jokes, I've seen a lot of jokes about Brady and he had to spend 3 weeks or 4 weeks with his kids. And, that joke kind of resonated with me being, a newly married couple and thinking about having children, perhaps. And, I love the kid jokes at this point right now in my life. That was a very funny, I forget who tweeted that, but somebody tweeted, Tom Brady spent 3 weeks with his kids at home and decided he had to go back to work.
He had to go back to work. Yes. Absolutely. So, Brady brings a leadership to the team. Now, does that leadership clash with the coaching, who are supposed to be the real guiding lights on the team, the real leaders? I mean, does he clash, or does he? I guess he has a good relationship with Byron Leftwich, so I don't know if it'll be that bad as far as going into next season, as far as a lot of turmoil in the locker room. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But with that team, they're still the favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a 3-team horse race to see who the next best team in the NFC South is.
Right.
Because there are so many questions everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, as even without Bruce Arians, we've seen this kind of arms race in the AFC happening.
Oh, God.
And, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers really too. I think smartly we're like, stay in the NFC. And I got the other guy to deal with. I got to beat Aaron Rodgers if I'm Brady. I got to beat Tom Brady if I'm Aaron Rodgers. But, got to beat Jimmy Garoppolo first to get to Tom Brady. Shot at Aaron Rodgers.
That depends on if Garoppolo's playing.
I know. I was just taking a shot at Aaron Rodgers.
I know.
You would enjoy it. I was taking a shot at Aaron Rodgers.
Go for it. I'm always up for shots at Aaron Rodgers.
But I just think it was interesting that those two Hall of Fame quarterbacks were like, no, I'm not going to move to the AFC. I'm going to stay right where I am.
Yeah. The AFC is loaded at the quarterback position. It's amazing what the AFC does. And I'm not even talking about Mitch Trubisky. So
right. That's when it got really loaded. When Mitch Trubisky decided, I'm going, well, he was with Buffalo, but staying in the AFC, moving to the AFC North, that just sent it over the top at quarterback.
As far as quarterbacks go, you still got Baker Mayfield sitting out there looking for a team.
He is. I think he's going to be waiting for a while.
So do I, because apparently they decided very early between him and the Panthers that it was just not going to work out. So, and I'm trying to think, other than Seattle, and the funny thing about the last couple of weeks too is Pete Carroll talking up Geno Smith as a quarterback. Like, come on, guys.
Well, they've talked about Colin Kaepernick there too. So, maybe not Pete Carroll, but I know there's rumors in the media at least that Colin Kaepernick there's an opportunity there for Colin Kaepernick. So I'm not all that surprised that Geno Smith is being mentioned too, because it seems like everybody is once you get to Colin Kaepernick. Nothing against Colin Kaepernick. I just don't want to spend too much time on him. But I think his time has passed as being out of the league for 5 years. And that's Florio wrote a great article about that. It just doesn't matter where you stand on the political side of Colin Kaepernick or not, if you're a fan or not of him, or if you hate him.
But
he's not been in the league for 5 years.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it makes a difference. But the only place I can really see for Baker Mayfield right now is Seattle. And if he doesn't go to Seattle, and I haven't heard anything connecting him with Seattle, he's going to have to be a backup somewhere. An $18 million backup.
Right, yeah.
But a backup.
I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, if you've identified Seattle as the only destination they don't want him or haven't expressed interest in him, the question for me becomes, will Seattle take him if Cleveland eats some of the salary? And would another team be interested in him if Cleveland eats a big portion of that $18 million salary for this year? It's only signed for 1 year.
Right.
Or I think the other scenario that Ian Rappaport presented was, they're waiting for Deshaun Watson's suspension to come down.
Yes.
And if he's suspended for 6 games, 8 games, 4 games, whatever, maybe they'd rather have Baker Mayfield start those games than Jacoby Brissett, their new backup quarterback.
Right.
But
you brought in Brissett because you didn't expect to have Baker Mayfield.
Right. And you lost Case Keenum. Well, you traded him. And you signed Jacoby Brissett, so you thought Brissett was an upgrade from Keenum, which is an important position because of Watson's situation. I think it's interesting to we could debate whether Brissett is actually better than Keenum. But now you're talking about maybe keeping Mayfield for playing those games when Watson is out. Even with a franchise quarterback as talented as Deshaun Watson, I can't help but look at Cleveland. I get it. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I look at them a little bit with a little bit of disdain, at least when I'm being objective.
Rivals, the way I look at Green Bay. Come on.
Right. Even when I'm objective, there's some disdain looking at the Browns. But my God, even with Watson, a franchise quarterback, they are a bit of a mess. They can't even, you're really going to start a quarterback that doesn't want to play for you, wrote a letter publicly that said, I do not want to be here. And you're going to keep him to start at least a quarter of your season because Watson is out. I just think that's a disaster waiting.
It is
waiting to happen.
It is a disaster waiting to happen. It would shock me if the Browns do that. I guess it would shock me. It wouldn't shock me if the Browns do that because I don't know about that Browns organization sometimes.
Right. I mean, if you're playing Madden, sure, this is a great strategy, but you don't have to meet in the quarterback room every day in Madden. You don't have to deal with the personalities in Madden. You can just look at it as, Baker Mayfield is, I don't know what he would be. What is he in Madden? An 82, I'll say. I'll give him an 82 score. Deshaun Watson's a 95. Jacoby Brissett is like a 75. Yeah, I'd rather have Baker Mayfield play. He's got 7 points on Jacoby Brissett. But that's not how it works.
No, that's going to be a mess. And I don't know how that's going to play out. Chris put Pantera's comment on the screen real quick, which
he agrees with me that Mayfield, that Cleveland's waiting for this Watson decision to see if they want Baker to play. And I think that's a legitimate thing that might be happening right now. And then, if there was a real hot trade market for Mayfield, then maybe they wouldn't be doing the strategy. But because there isn't, they can be patient and try to do this.
Yeah, everything dried up. Once Winston went back to New Orleans, and the Texans decided to stay pat. Everybody's staying pat now. Everybody thinks they have a quarterback. It's a weird time in the league because everybody thinks they have a quarterback that they can move forward with. So it's a rough market. It became a rough market once Watson went to Denver and, once a few of the other dominoes fell into place. Yeah. Because now it seems like the entire – you likened it to musical chairs. Well, it looks like, Mayfield, there are no more chairs.
Right.
They're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
He can't even sit on somebody's lap. He's just gone.
We'll see if anything changes after the draft, but that might be harder by then because, maybe a team like Seattle gets a quarterback that they're not expecting or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
it could be.
know.
I think some quarterbacks go later in the draft as teams try to, what's the word I'm trying to project a quarterback into being a possible starter.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that happening, but quarterbacks aren't going to go early basically because everybody drafting ahead of the Falcons don't need a quarterback other
Right.
than Carolina.
Other
And
than
they've already
Carolina.
decided that Mayfield is not going to be the guy. So that's why I say Malik Willis might end up in Carolina. We'll see. That'll
He
be an
might.
interesting
He
situation.
might. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting draft, and we'll get more into the draft as April rolls around. We're now in April 2nd today,
Yeah.
but we are, 4 weeks away from,
Yeah.
I mean, this would be day 3 of the draft, 4 weeks from today, but it's right around the corner. And
it really is.
We will have lots of draft coverage on Atlanta Sports Unlimited. So give our channel hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like us on Facebook, watch the other Georgia sports videos on the channel.
Right.
And a great way to support us, other than liking our videos and subscribing to the channel, sign up for Prize Picks and use that promo code ASU when you sign up. Download the app in your app store. And when you use that promo code, you get a 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit. You can get started today.
Absolutely. As I said, we got some powerhouse NCAA games today. So it's a good day to sign up and make your first picks on Prize Picks.
So we only have about 15 minutes left in the show, and we had a couple other smaller topics that we wanted to get to. How about you tee up the Arthur Blank quarterback conversation or quotes that he said at the owners meeting this week?
Well, and I thought it was fascinating because Arthur Blank all of a sudden has come out and said, well, we do need a long-term plan at quarterback. We had one. We had Matt Ryan. Now we need to establish another long-term plan at quarterback. Well, you had your chance last year at 6 in a class that had quarterbacks available.
At 4. They were 4.
Yeah, 4. I'm sorry. Yeah, so you had Mac Jones, you had Justin
Fields.
Justin Fields. I'm getting ahead of sometimes my mouth doesn't move as fast as my brain would like it to. So, but it's interesting because right now it's tough to establish that long-term answer at quarterback because you passed up the chance to get one of those rookies and let one of them play behind Matt Ryan for a year.
Yeah.
And be a rookie and soak up knowledge and watch Matt Ryan play. And I know there are some people who are thinking, well, we would have had Matt Ryan this year, could have taken a quarterback and had a quarterback spend a year under Ryan. And it kind of goes against what Blank is saying. Blank's saying we needed a long-term answer. Then they jumped in for Watson. Was Watson a long-term answer?
I think for Arthur Blank, he was, yeah.
For Arthur Blank, he was. I don't know. Did fans think he was a long-term answer? Did the coaching staff think he was a long-term answer? I don't know. I think and that's what was the final driving force that drove Ryan to Indianapolis, is that you still would have had Ryan here if they hadn't made the big play for Watson.
Right, yeah.
And you could have brought in a quarterback to groom and try to develop another long-term answer quarterback. The king is dead, long live the king type thing, where, Ryan finally retires and now you have somebody new who's going to carry the team for the next decade.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you said you didn't think they would be contenders even with Ryan as their quarterback this season. I think that's a fair assessment. But in this wild NFC South, we just spent a lot of time talking about, the weaknesses of the division. Now, Tampa Bay may have taken a step back with Arians retiring. If the Falcons still had Ryan, I think they could maybe win, 6, 7, 8 games like last year, and that would be much better than what they're going to put on the field this year. And why draft a quarterback this year when it doesn't sound like any of them are, I guess if you believe in one, then you believe in one. If you're a scouting department and you believe in Malik Willis and he's there at 8, or if you believe in Kenny Pickett and he's there at 8, then you go for it. You don't listen to the mock draft experts if you're a GM. But as a fan, as somebody who hosts this show, I'm listening to the mock draft experts, and I just think the likelihood of landing a franchise quarterback in this class is much less than you had last year or next year. So it would have made sense to keep Ryan and look for the long-term solution next year. That's what they should do, even if they don't have Ryan, I guess, is a conclusion I could make.
Look for that. I think they're forced into that spot this year because Mariota is a bridge quarterback. There's no way Mariota is going to be the long-term answer here.
Right,
we saw Mariota for 5 seasons, and we've seen what he can do.
But that doesn't mean they have to draft a quarterback this year.
No, they don't have to. They could do that. They could take your scenario where they play out this year, try and build depth around the quarterback position this year.
Right.
Again, they are in a good position where they could grab an edge rusher, a defensive lineman, and they're in a good position where a deep wide receiver class where they can rebuild that wide receiver group pretty much on the fly and bring in a solid core of wide receivers that you can give to a quarterback if you draft him next year. So you could still play that long game with the quarterback, but I think it's harder without Ryan in place. Again, you got Ryan. It's nice to have that kind of quarterback who can groom somebody who's basically a Hall of Fame quarterback. Ryan's going into the Hall of Fame,
right?
But
I guess I don't buy into that as much as you do. Maybe that's because you're more old school than me. Generally, I am a pretty old school fan. But the days of developing a quarterback behind your Hall of Fame starter, to me, that's done. That's over. You don't need to do that anymore. Look at all the rookies that played last year and played well. Mac Jones made the playoffs. There's examples of rookie quarterbacks every year stepping in and playing well. It's not the aberration anymore. That is much more the norm.
Trying to tell me I'm old, Dave?
I mean, you told me in the past that that's true. So I said old school, not old.
Oh man.
But
if you have an NFL ready quarterback, then you plug him in and see what you can do with him. And Arthur Smith is, he has run a very good offense, has run a very effective offense with Tennessee, kind of knows what he's doing, and I think could guide a young quarterback through, his growth period and get him ready to go. So I just don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think they have the quarterback. There is no long-term answer at quarterback this year. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Arthur Smith helped anything by coming out with that comment.
You mean Arthur Blank?
Arthur Blank, yes, Arthur Blank. Got my Arthurs mixed up.
That's okay. I guess I look at that. You asked how I would react to Blank's comments, and I guess I just feel like it's a reaction.
Yeah, right.
Of course, you need a quarterback. I don't think it really is any indication that he's regretting not picking one last year, or if it's an indication that he wishes they had done more to get Watson, or that it's an indication they're going to draft a quarterback this year. To me, it's just like a bland statement that you give the media when you were trying to say nothing. Because really, at the end of the day, that's a nothing statement. Of course you need a quarterback.
It is a nothing statement. However, Arthur Smith is getting frustrated. He wants the Super Bowl champion. And I think he's taking a more direct role in this team than he had in the past. And that's the thing I worry about when he makes these kind of statements. is that going to affect what is he trying to subtly tell Terry Fontenot what he wants him to do?
I don't think Blank subtly tells anybody what to do. I think Blank flat out tells them what to do at times. And that is a problem too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's why I say he's the man with the money.
Larry Orange says, I wouldn't have gone after Watson at all. And your points are well taken. Didn't play last year, went 4-12. If you're the Falcons, it's a little bit different if you're Cleveland because you have a pretty good roster. But if you're the Falcons, not going to have a first-round pick till 2025, and you have the roster that you do, not any better than the 2020 Houston Texans. Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me going after Watson. Right. And Pantera comment a few comments ago from Pantera, of course, Watson was a long-term solution, but Watson wasn't a target until Watson called Arthur Blank. That's interesting. I guess I hadn't heard that Blank became infatuated with Watson because Watson called him. I didn't know about that, but I think it stands true that we're talking about Blank being a subtle or even a big part of the decision making for the Atlanta Falcons.
I think it used to be subtle. It's not as subtle anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was the reason why the team went after Watson, and I'm agreeing with Larry Orange that I think that was a mistake.
Yes.
Larry Orange is a good guy. He knows what he's talking about. So it sent Matt Ryan away, basically.
Yes, it did.
And there are advantages to just eating his salary cap now, but it's going to really hurt the team for this year. It's not going to make them competitive at all this fall. And what does that do for the future at quarterback in terms of, are you going to be in a situation where you're pressured into taking a quarterback? Are you pressuring your general manager into taking a quarterback this year, maybe when he doesn't want to because Matt Ryan's not there anymore?
And see, that's what I'm trying, and maybe I'm not saying it.
Is that okay?
Maybe I'm being more roundabout about it, but that's kind of what I've been trying to say, is he trying to force Terry Fontenot's hand this year?
Okay, I think that's a fair. I like that question, and we'll see. I think if the Falcons take a quarterback, then I'll answer with yes.
We'll know, yes.
Yeah, we'll know. We'll know at that point. But I think the plan all along when they passed on Justin Fields should have been we're committed to Matt Ryan for 2 years, and that blew up in their face when they went after Watson.
Yes, it did.
That's fine. But you can still commit to that 2-year period because you have Marcus Mariota. It's not going to be pretty, but you can still wait for the 2023 draft class at quarterback, which is supposed to be much better.
Yes. Yeah. That's about all we can say on it right now. I'm sure we'll be talking about this as we keep moving forward towards the draft, because I want to see other things that Arthur Blank has to say. What gets me is before they went for Watson, they had a renegotiation set with Ryan that was going to extend his cap hit out with voidable years. They lost that when they started going after Watson. So they do end up eating a lot of cap this year. Again, part of that consequence of going for Watson, they eat up a lot of cap. They eat up more cap than they would have had to eat if they had kept Ryan.
Right.
And not going after Watson.
Yeah. And if you're looking at 2022 not being a year they could have been competing anyway, then you say it doesn't matter. But if you thought, like I thought initially, at least in the offseason, that this team could win 7 or 8 games again and be second place in the NFC South, it does matter that they're eating all that cap space this fall.
30% of their salary cap is going to dead cap.
Yeah.
$60 million dead cap hit. So
the good news is that'll
build the team that way.
Yeah. The good news is that'll be gone next year.
Yes. There is no dead cap for next year. It's gone.
Right.
Because you're still eating dead cap for Julio Jones this year.
Right.
That's $15 million.
Yes. And, you could even, I think they had this option. They could have eaten all of it last year. And you didn't because you thought, you were telling the public that you could rebuild on the fly with this team,
right?
In Arthur Smith's first season. And I mean, you won 7 games, sure, but you were out of it in a lot of other games that you lost.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have just been
against winning teams.
Maybe it would have just been better to eat all of Julio Jones's contract last year, and then you would have had less dead cap this year. But it's all being pushed into this season, and this season, as I've said many times, and we'll say again, is not going to be pretty anyway. So that dead cap, in some ways, doesn't matter.
Because right now you're going to be living with your draft picks and a lot of undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a good look at the Falcons scouting staff, because we're going to have to see how many of these undrafted free agents can come in and actually compete. So, and undrafted free agents, you can always find good players out of that pool every season. It's just a matter of identifying them, and then the teams that do that are the teams that have the best scouting. So we're going to get a look at Atlanta's scouting staff and how good they are this year, as who they bring in as far as the draft and undrafted free agents.
We'll table the Grady Jarrett contract negotiation discussion for a later episode. But real quick, what are the Falcons getting in wide receiver Damiere Byrd?
A body.
The body? Is that how you say it?
A body.
Oh, a body. Okay.
A body.
I thought you were telling me I pronounced his first name, and I was like, "There's no B in Damiere."
No. They're getting a body. Can make some good catches. Has not been used much. Was used more in 2020 with the Patriots than he was last year with the Bears. But Bears' offense was terrible last year. It's hard to tell exactly what you're getting because of how bad the Bears were at executing their offense last season. I think, Byrd is going to be a solid wide receiver. I don't think he's going to be anything special. Don't look at him to make any big impact this season.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, he started 4 games with the Bears last year. He actually had 14 starts with the Patriots in 2020. Right. 26 catches, 329 receiving yards with the Bears last year, 1 touchdown. Also had a touchdown with the Patriots in 2020, but had a lot more production, I would say. 47 receptions, 604 receiving yards in 2020. So,
and as I say, I think a lot of that comes back to being how bad the Bears were last year, how bad their offense was. What a mess that team was under Matt Nagy.
Well, he's had at least 25 catches 3 years in a row, at least 325 receiving yards 3 years in a row. So, looking at that stat line, and the depth chart for the Patriots at wide receiver, I think it's a decent signing. It's a body, it's somebody, but that's what they need right now. Wide receivers, they need bodies. So, and they need guys.
I'm not saying it's a bad signing.
Okay. You don't think it moves the needle a ton?
I don't. No. I don't really think it moves the needle.
I mean, I don't think you're going to move the needle with any wide receiver in free agency, to be honest. No. That doesn't really put a team over the top. I
think they're going to make their biggest impact at wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you think they should go wide receiver at 8, though.
No. Top 10, unless he is a truly, truly special wide receiver. No. Take an impact play. You got to take a player who's going to have an impact now. And right now for the Falcons, that's defensive end.
I want to give a shout out to Sean. He said, "What's good, guys?" A little bit ago. So thanks for tuning in, Sean.
Yep.
Thanks for all the comments, everybody. We love having you here every week for our show. Give us a like on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Lots of great content all year round, really, for Georgia sports. But baseball opening back up next week. And, Final Four of this weekend. So it's an exciting time for sports. NFL draft coming up too. So tune into the channel for all of the content, with Georgia specific sports content that's on Atlanta Sports Unlimited.
Absolutely. Plenty to choose from here.
And we'll be back next Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, we will. And hope to have all of you back with us. Have a great week.